Hello, Feuzion. My name is Alex Hughes, a host of Feuzion News. Today is December or January 24th, 2017. It is 6:30 p.m. here on the East Coast, 3:30 on the West Coast. I am joined by political correspondent Ann Gearan from the Washington Post. So, Ann, how are you doing on this very busy Tuesday?
Hi, happy to be with you. Well, we did have a pretty busy day in Washington today. It was the second full day of regular business for the new Trump White House, and that meant more executive orders, another meeting with business leaders, another contentious briefing with the new White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, and a little bit, not much, but a little bit of progress on getting some of Trump's nominees to the Senate and ready to get to work.
Yeah, you just mentioned that as well. And this whole cabinet confirmation process has not been what President Trump has wanted. I know Obama has probably had what's the number at, like 14 confirmations during his first week as president, and now he just got his fourth confirmation today. So how much longer do you think we'll be seeing more of these positions fill in for the new president?
Well, I think in the case of some of the most high-profile cabinet positions, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, it's going to take a little while into next week for sure. We're expecting to have the Secretary of State confirmation hearing next week sometime. It hasn't been set for a vote on the floor yet, but we're having told to expect it next week. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee had approved Rex Tillerson yesterday, so that's taking a while, and that, among other high-profile cabinet positions, the Trump White House largely blames any delay on Senate Democrats asking for more time or dragging their feet. It's not actually clear how true the foot dragging is across the board. It's certainly, in some cases, Democrats have asked for more information. But that was one of the things that Spicer complained about at the briefing today, was that despite actually having a very large slate of nominees ready to go ahead of Trump's own inauguration, this is taking a long time.
Definitely, and like you mentioned at beginning of the show, a lot of executive orders took place today, and President Trump signed the executive order that will make it easier for the Trans-Canada to construct the Keystone XL pipeline and for Energy Transport Partners to build the final portion of the Dakota Access Pipeline. So, this brings jobs back, which was a major campaign promise that President Trump has made for the past 2 years or 18 months as well. So in the future, where do we see this executive order, and how much longer do you think before this whole process starts?
Well, there's a lot there. The question of how many jobs these projects produce is in dispute. What isn't in dispute is that Trump had promised during the campaign to move ahead on both of these projects and to remove the roadblocks that were within his power to remove, and so he did so. In the case of the Keystone Pipeline, they already had a whole lot of the preliminary work done, so I do expect to see that move forward fairly quickly, unless there are additional ways that opponents of it can try to raise regulatory concerns that slow it down again. And remember, though, that this is not entirely a political, a purely Republican political issue. The same thing with TPP yesterday, which Trump did remove the U.S. As a participant. The TPP had not been ratified by the Senate, so that has no real practical effect, but has huge symbolic effect. And like Keystone, the supporters and opponents of TPP cross political lines. remember that Trump's opponent in the election, Hillary Clinton, had also said after some period of time where she was getting flogged by labor and other groups that she also opposed the TPP. Again, the TPP action that Trump took yesterday is something he said he would do as a candidate. So far, these are actually not surprising actions he's taken. If, as has been reported tonight, he makes some rather bold strokes tomorrow on immigration, that will be more controversial than anything he's done so far.
Right, and you just mentioned the whole immigration and illegal immigration in the Mexico border as well, that he's also talked a lot about that. I'm sure that everyone is aware. And according to Sean Spicer from today's briefing, he was asked about this whole illegal immigration in the Mexico wall that will supposed to be put up at the border. And he said, until the positions of Secretary of State and Homeland Security are filled by Rex Tillerson and John Kelly, that we aren't going to be seeing any major executive orders signed. And so, do you see any major, how long do you think we hear more about this whole illegal immigration process that Trump has said build a wall over the past 18 months as well during his campaign?
Yeah, we really don't know. I mean, certainly Spicer and others have promised repeatedly ahead of the inauguration that the wall is real, the wall will be built. Remember that Trump had a number of immigration-related policy promises as a candidate. In addition to the wall, one was to stop illegal immigration coming from south of the border. I think that's the one that you're referring to most directly here. And the other was first a ban on Muslim immigration, then that was modified to a ban or a severe restriction on any immigrants or refugees coming from countries identified as sources of terrorism. Never totally clear as a candidate exactly what he intended to do on that front, but that is not a border-specific immigration issue, and that's the one that it appears that they may be moving on more quickly to actually have a terrorism-based refinement and to the restrictions on who can come in and in what numbers, and whether there might possibly be a moratorium on immigration from some places.
Definitely. And we'll switch gears and talk. Also, Sean Spicer got into it today during the briefing with the press about the so-called 3.5 to 5 million illegal votes. He basically got sucked into this time warp, basically, what Trump has said in the past, as well as what he talked a little bit about last night, in the press, asked, does President Trump still think that there was 3.5 million to 5 million illegal votes, which is why he did not win the popular vote? And Donald Trump believes, he's been saying he believed that in the past. So do you think, since the President of the United States believes that there is millions, according to him, in previous reports that have illegal voting?
I don't know what he believes. I know that there's no evidence that there were 3.5 to 5 million illegal votes cast, certainly at all, nor for the reason that he has now cited several times, either publicly or in earshot of people who then told reporters about it, which was the case last night. What Spicer said today, without evidence, is that this is something that the president believes, continues to believe, based on things that people have told and showed him. Spicer did not offer specifics on what those things that Trump has been told or shown might be, or really fill in any of the blanks there. He also, I thought interestingly, declined to directly say whether he, as the previous spokesman for the Republican National Committee, so not a party outside of the electoral politics process by any means, whether he also believed this to be true. He kind of stepped around that, but he did very clearly say that Trump believes it.
Yeah, and it's kind of strange to see a president that believes that there is, illegal votes, and according to Trump, that he believes over millions of votes. So, do you see a possible future, further action in the next few years to really do an investigation of this potential illegal voting?
Certainly, there were rumblings that this might be something that the Justice Department would undertake. If that could go a couple ways, right? I mean, the Trump Justice Department under his choice for Attorney General Jeff Sessions could decide that this is something that needs to be investigated and prevented in future if found to be true, or outside groups that don't believe it happened could bring lawsuits that force the government to either produce its own information or investigate this as a means of showing that Trump's claim is wrong. I actually don't know, whether either of those things is likely, but certainly they're in the air.
Mm-hmm. And two more things before I wrap up this interview. Yesterday, or a few days ago, Trump signed an executive order on the Affordable Care Act, which moves it to the further step to repeal and replace, which has also been one of his campaign major points as well. And I want to ask you, what will be the repeal part of this campaign promise?
So this is a really complicated one, and I can't give you a very simple answer. There are elements of the Affordable Care Act that Trump can either do away with as a practical matter via executive action, or he can order various agencies, including the IRS, not to enforce. But there is no way to completely do away with the law without Congress either repealing it or replacing it immediately in the same action with a different law. The only other way to get rid of a law is to have it ruled unconstitutional. A law, an act of Congress is to have it ruled unconstitutional by the federal courts. That we've already gone through that process with the Affordable Care Act. It has been ruled constitutional. So now it is purely a matter of legislation. Should the Republican-led Congress choose to wholesale repeal it, separate from doing it as part of the budget process, which is what they've been doing piecemeal right now, that requires a full-on legislative process in which the Democrats get to participate and could potentially hold things up. More than potentially, they could definitely hold things up. So Republicans would like to avoid that if they can. So what they will be, it appears they will be doing, is a piecemeal repeal of the parts that they can do on their own, or that the White House can do on its own, which leaves a lot of questions for states, particularly about exactly what parts of it will be retained, and how the federal government will administer the parts of it that will be retained.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and final question before we wrap up this Fusion News interview. Going forward, I know some of the Republicans have been very happy with this day two, just the first 2 days of this Trump presidency. So do you see this being a successful presidency over the past few days? And do you think that most people are happy so far, within the Republican?
Yeah, I can't really, as a news reporter, I can't give a value judgment on whether it's successful or not successful. But I would love to know the answer to the second part of the question of how Trump supporters and those who do not support him would grade the first couple of days, and we'll have to wait for opinion polling to know that. Certainly, there were a lot of Trump opponents who made their feelings known on Saturday at the march in Washington and elsewhere around the country and around the world, but that's not a scientific sampling, so we don't really know the answer.
Yeah. Well, Ann, I want to say thank you for joining me on this Feuzion News episode tonight, and I want to say I hope you come on very soon as well. And where can political fans want to, where can they follow you on Twitter and read your articles?
Yeah, great. So on Twitter, I'm at Gearan. That's Agearan. And please go to Washington Post, the Washington Post website, which is washpost.com. And you'll find, the whole website is washingtonpost.com, pardon me. And you will find there a variety of news and opinion, and I hope things that will interest everybody. And you'll also, if you would like to, you can subscribe, or so that you get unlimited access to the Washington Post. Otherwise, you can see a fair amount of it for free, but you do eventually hit a paywall.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ann, for coming on tonight.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Fuse Nation, I just wrapped up that interview with Ann Gearan from the Washington Post. I'll be going back live on YouTube in less than 15 minutes for another Feuzion News show. Thanks for watching. Be a subscriber of Feuzion News as well. Like the video, comment below. Follow me on Twitter at AlexFuse. See you soon, and be kind to one another. Thanks for watching.